Okay. Does that lighting help? That's gonna fade out. I think I decided also, well, there's always got to be an obligatory car talking video, right? And I already have one. It has 0 views to this day, but so I figured that's a good model to use on this video. So I said I was going, okay, I didn't say nothing. I'm going to talk about the wastegate theory, okay? Wastegate analogy, allegory of a wastegate. So in a turbocharger system, there's a device called a wastegate. You just gotta know that for now. I have to do some backstory for you non-mechanical folk about engines. So this is gonna be a mouthful. The reciprocating piston internal combustion gasoline engine, AKA 98% of what's on the road now, essentially, with exclusions of diesels, which is very similar. Oh, I forgot to mention 4-stroke. In the 4-stroke reciprocating piston internal combustion engine, there's mainly 4 things. Imagine riding your bicycle down the street and your knees are going up and down. Left, right, or your right, my left. Now imagine those are the sources of the power. So these are the pistons. Your femur would be the connecting rod. Your bike crank would be the crankshaft. And then your chain and your sprockets are the transmission. You're going down the street. And I gotta keep a clock up, hold on, so I know when I have to go into work. I'm surprised I'm doing this with the morning mind, because I have like a haze. I don't think I have it now, but there's a haze. It's like I'm booting up my PC essentially, and it usually lasts like a half hour in the morning. Non-coffee drinker here, by the way. So that's the analogy to understand the engine is your knees are going up and down. These are the pistons, like you see in those oil commercials where they're like, restore horsepower. And so left, right, except your knees going up, your knees going down, knees going up, knees going down. That's not a cycle. The cycle is actually every other. So knees going up, knees going down, knees going up, knees going down, cycle. Knees going up, knees going down, knees going up, knees going down, cycle. That is the rhythm. Knees going up, knees going down. So let's start with down though. Knees going down, sucking air in from the atmosphere and fuel. Valve shuts, knees going up, compressing it. Spark, flame, the sudden heat is what expands it. So having a confined area with a bunch of heat, the hotter air is, the more volume it takes up naturally. So if it's trying to take up a huge volume, but it's in a small one, it's gonna give whatever the path of least resistance. So your piston in this case is the only thing that moves in your combustion chamber and your cylinder walls. So it goes down, has nowhere else to go. But then at the end, it opens again to let that stuff out into your exhaust pipe. So was that 4 cycles yet? Intake, compression, combustion, exhaust. Intake, compression, combustion, exhaust. And it does it all the time. That'd be a 1-cylinder engine. You'd probably have 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 if you have a lot more money than me. Pistons all doing this at the same time at slightly different not angles, but. So anyway, it'd be like riding your bike with 12 knees and more associated baggage. So anyway, that's how the engine works. Now this air stroke, where I was talking about the pistons going down and atmospheres coming in, that is the intake stroke, and we are reliant. When the piston goes down, that creates a void because it needs more air to deplete this volume that is increasing. Not deplete, to fill up the volume that is increasing. The only thing that pushes that air in is the atmospheric pressure, which is around 14.7 at sea level. Pounds per square inch, by the way. Just like the same thing, you're pumping up your bike tire and you see 15. That's gauge pressure, not absolute. You'd have to add another 14.7 to it to get absolute pressure at sea level. If you're watching this in Colorado, you're gonna be like, not that much pressure, buddy, because they're really high up. And what creates atmospheric pressure is basically a stack of air upon air. Air has a weight to it. Air is not weightless. And that's how you can be buoyant. That's how you can have hot air balloons and stuff. Because the air is, I can't get into the theory of hot air balloons, but I can continue my theory about this wastegate. So the only force we have to push that air down when the piston's going is the atmosphere. That's your limit. But with a turbocharger system, this is basically a fan that blows more air in during that cycle where the valve's open and your piston's going down. You can push more air in. Picture like, I do this sometimes with water bottles. I'll like push more air in and I can feel like an air spring. What time is it? 6:21. You know what? I might have to finish this in a couple when I get out on break. But the turbocharger system, like I said, it's a fan. And I don't need to get deep, but imagine using your exhaust that's already blowing out. That's when the piston's pushing up. It's blowing into the exhaust pipe. Imagine using that stream of force that's otherwise just going out the tailpipe to spin a fan that's connected to a shaft that spins another fan. The other fan pulls fresh air in and pushes fresh air in the engine. That's called the compressor side. The turbine side is what is inducing, is what is getting pushed. Imagine you're the car and you're blowing through a straw and you have a little fan at the end. You go zzz. That fan is connected to a fresh air stream, separate. It's gotta be. You can't just feed your exhaust back into your engine, it'll kill it. That's like breathing into a bag, but forever, I guess. All right, it's 6:22. I will come back and pick up where I left off, if I can remember exactly where I left off. I left off with the turbocharger theory. Okay, perfect. I left off right where I explained the wastegate. And then I'll get to how a wastegate applies to looping in your mind. Goodbye for now. Okay, I spent copious amounts of time trying to find the footage and I can't. So I'm just going to try to recreate the second part of this video. Which side's the camera on? That one. So, the mechanical analogy of the wastegate. I should preface by saying I am not prepped. Like, I just hit record. So it might take a second for me to lock back in. So, in a turbocharger system, what did I cover so far? In a turbocharger system, I think I already covered internal combustion. So here's the wastegate specifically. Forced induction, turbocharged system. You need, if you can get more air and more fuel into the cylinder, you get more work done. One way to force more air in there, but you can't just add more fuel in a gasoline engine. It has to be proportionate with the air. So the device called a turbocharger forces air in using the exhaust energy. So the blowing hot air that comes out your pipe is energy. Imagine putting a pinwheel on the end of that. It would go zzz. Then imagine connecting a rod to that pinwheel to go to another fan, because you got to keep your exhaust and intake separate. Like, you can't just, if you just loop the exhaust pipe into the intake of a engine, it'll just stall out. So there's a cold and a hot side. But the point of the wastegate is this. Without a wastegate, and this is analogous with a coping device or a release or relief or an escape or inner peace or what have you. Without a wastegate, what happens is this. Turbocharger, you rev up the engine, the exhaust has enough energy to spin the turbo enough to force more air in. When you force more air in, it produces more exhaust, which is the source of the energy of the turbo. So it's a loop. So if you leave it to its own devices, just like you might leave yourself to your own internal devices, it'll basically completely detonate. So the load will get so heavy because the piston's coming in, so much air is getting forced in, that the, not explosion, but the combustion is so big that it's so much power that one of three things happens. You blow a head gasket, Basically, the weakest link will break. You blow a head gasket, you rev up so high that the connecting rod actually breaks the cap off and usually sends the connecting rod through the block via a crack that it created itself. Or, I actually don't remember what the third thing was, but in short, you don't have a wastegate. The thing will not be able to self-regulate how much energy it consumes, and it'll detonate. But the wastegate is just a little valve that senses the intake stream pressure, and when it gets to a predetermined point, it just pops open a little. And when it pops open a little bit, it lets some of that exhaust that would get pushed down the turbo off into the atmosphere. So imagine a device that says, hey buddy, you had enough. And it can float. So like, it automatically, if it has too much, it'll open more. And if it has not enough, it'll shut and let it build a bit. So imagine we all had these devices, imagine we all had a wastegate. When we started looping in our head, it would just pop off and you would be safe. I feel like I did it better the first time, but there it is. Good afternoon.